Welcome to pSolv, where innovation meets insight. In this tutorial, we'll walk you through Needletail's code generation process and explore the different options available to deploy your pipelines. Let's get started. After you've configured and built your pipeline in Needletail, you'll typically use the generate function. This creates DSL, or domain-specific language Python code, along with related project artifacts. The DSL code is the intermediary code that is shown in the Jupyter notebook and, when executed, generates the target PySpark code. Let's go through the steps of the DSL code in Jupyter notebook. Select Browse on the pipeline node to open the location of your generated code. In this example, we will examine the contents of the album ingest DSL code. You can see each pipeline step clearly laid out within the notebook. Under the step pipeline.visualize, you'll find a helpful diagram that visually illustrates your pipeline workflow. Next, the pipeline.generate step creates the actual PySpark code that powers your pipeline. Finally, the PySpark code is executed by the step pipeline.submit. To find this generated PySpark target code, return to Needletail and select Browse at the project level. Open the target directory and select the Python file you wish to inspect. Another important feature is the config directory. This directory comes pre-configured with multiple deployment environments. Within each environment's folder, you'll find two essential configuration files. The runtime configuration file lets you configure your debugging process, cluster settings, and other Spark-specific variables. The endpoint configuration file stores details of your endpoints and lets you customize them per environment. Adjusting these files gives you greater control over how your pipeline behaves in each specific environment. Here is a quick overview of all the different files we've discussed and their locations. Below, you will also find the recommended command to execute your pipeline within different deployment environments. Now let's explore the various deployment options available for Needletail pipelines. By default, pipelines deploy to Spark Local, running on the same instance where Needletail is installed. However, you have several alternative deployment options, including a separate EC2 instance, Kubernetes clusters, AWS EMR, Databricks, and even Hadoop clusters. All these deployment options can be configured directly through the Needletail UI under Project Preferences or by editing your runtime configuration files. Here's how you configure deployments in the runtime configuration file. For a local deployment, ensure the value of the master argument is set to local. To deploy to EMR, you'll need to update the Run As and Cluster ID values under the Root Spark section, along with the values of master and deploy mode in the root arguments. Deploying to a Kubernetes cluster requires additional setup, including specifying an S3 path to upload the pipeline code and the associated Kubernetes service account details. Here's an example of what a K8 runtime configuration file looks like. You can further customize this file to adjust any additional Spark-related options or enable logging in the trace section for enhanced debugging. Keep in mind, every time you run generate in Needletail, these configuration files will be overwritten. We recommend saving backups of your custom configurations if you want to preserve your deployment settings. That wraps up our overview of Needletail's code generation process. We've covered several key features and deployment options available to help you manage your pipelines effectively. Thank you for watching. For more detailed documentation, visit the Needletail help page. If you have any questions, feel free to contact our support team by email or phone.